Oh. Good evening, good evening. Welcome to South TV. This is Monica Kunsekwe-Guta speaking today. I am your host. I am a life coach. I'm also an author. And so today we have a topic that we need to keep talking about because people tend to forget. So we need to find ways of just keeping this topic alive so that we can save lives. There's been too many spousal killings in our communities, and so we need to talk about it. We have Sipiwe here. Sipiwe, can you talk to your audience, please?
Hello, everybody. This is Sipiwe Kachizama Fumo. You've seen me a couple of times on South TV. I am a journalist. I'm a broadcaster. I wear different hats at any time because I advocate for a lot of groups. I enjoy participating on South TV because I am truly touched and concerned about some of the issues that affect our communities that a lot of times we put in the back burner, but then there are issues that we need to talk about. Thank you, Monica, for continuing to invite us and bringing these issues to the fore.
Thank you, thank you. Maxine, can you talk to our audience, please?
Good evening, audience. My name is Maxine Willocks. I'm a wellness coach. I focus on wellness through nutrition, exercise, and nature. And the combination of all three are so effective, are so simple. My passion, though, is helping women become unstuck. I donate a lot of my time to the women's shelter. I've also started a healing group to come out of toxic relationships and toxic behavior. I donate this time 1 hour per week for anyone, male or female, who just feels stuck and don't know what to do and want to come out of that place that they're in. It's a safe place where there's no judgment, there's peace, there's love, there's hope.
Thank you. So, Aunt Spiwe, we have been talking, this is a topic that we often talk about amongst ourselves, or when we come across an incident that kind of shakes our community and reminds us that there is a lot of abuse going on. There is a lot of control, as well as some attempt to strip another human being of their rights. What are your comments on this topic?
Thank you, Monica. The issue of domestic violence or intimate partner violence is quite concerning, and we cannot put it aside and not talk about it. A lot of times we do that, but it's quite a pervasive public health concern. It's a problem, not just people being beaten up or being killed, but it translates into something huge and something bigger. And the biggest outcome is people dying in relationships like this. And the unfortunate thing that there are higher rates of deaths in black women as compared to white women, for instance. There's been some research which has been done to check what's going on. So right now, I think it's important that we talk about it because we are the ones who are, the statistics, they don't indicate well for us. A lot are dying in relationships like that. And there is a whole host of how does it look like? What does domestic violence look like? Because a lot of times we just think of a husband who comes home and beats up the wife and she runs out with people without children as domestic violence. There is more to it than that. There is physical violence, there's emotional violence. There are, it's on a spectrum. And we need to talk about it because someone might say, he's never touched me. But also at the same time, they spiral off the axis because their health is affected. High blood pressure, all kinds of things that come as a result of a relationship which is not working. So we need to identify it and point it and name it and address it. I think I'll stop at that.
I like where you said that the she will say that, but he's never touched me. I was once in a relationship where the verbal and the emotional was really bad. And each time I mentioned that this is abusive, he would say, but I've never touched you.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes one to actually know what they want, understand their self-worth, to say, you know what, this I can take, but this I can't.
Yeah.
Maxine, go ahead.
Yeah, you know what, Sipway and Monica, I would just love to add to what you've said. But first of all, I'm just going to speak to anybody, male or female, that's in a toxic relationship right now and just feels stuck and don't know what to do. Like what you said, Monica, I've been there as well. And to tie it in a little bit neater, when you talk about Black women, we protect our men. It goes back all the way to slavery, when that's ingrained in us, where we had to raise the family. And through generations, we've kept that. We're there for our Black men. We don't, or our men in general, right? Women are the ones that keep the family together. So, by the time they think about the kids, the spouse, I don't want to damage his career, there's finances involved. Boy, by the time they go through everything, guess what? They're at the bottom of the pile. So that's why I'm saying that I sympathize with you. I understand how you feel. However, I want people to understand that putting yourself at the bottom of the pile, you're only going to get squished. Make that decision now. It's going to be hard. To do anything, to start anything is hard. But you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache. And take it from me, who has experienced that. On the other side of that fear is freedom. I turn it back over to you, ladies.
Go back to Auntie Spiwe.
You see, Maxine has put it very well, that they are, it's complex in the sense that it doesn't come as one package that domestic violence happens. It's not because you did this, that's why you got this. It's not that. And there is a whole host of intersectionalities, which if we want to look at what happens in domestic violence, one, you are an African, for instance, an African woman or a Black woman. We are a woman, you are a Black woman, you are a mother, and sometimes you are unemployed, or you are employed in a position which is higher than the men you live with. All those come together. All those come together, and they build on someone's ego. It could be him or people around him who keep pushing him. Why are things like this? It's because you've got a woman like this. You've got a woman like this. She stays home. She doesn't work, or she's got a higher position. She's got a higher degree, or she makes more money than you. And all those, they just add up, and there's no one single thing that causes this violence. But a lot of times, people, again, I go back to what I said. They don't know how to name it. They don't know how to point at it, that I am going through that. And as Maxine said, we grow up being told you have to be a strong woman. And there is stigma, there is fear associated with this stigma, and it's real. Physical violence and emotional violence and all kinds of violence, all these things, they add up. And sometimes what makes it complex, a person might not have a good support system to sort of go and share these emotions, share what they're going through. And so they're alone. Again, as you said, Monica, it's part of violence. People who beat up their wives or who emotionally abuse their partners, either wife or husband. They have a tendency, there's a system to it. They isolate you so that you have no system. Like we're saying, support system is not there, there is a tendency to isolate the person who is here. And when you are isolated, you have nobody to share that with. But though there are resources around, again, stigma and fear of being pointed at that, oh, you know what? Oh, she's saying she's having a problem. The husband beat her up. People will say, maybe she's doing this. Maybe she's fooling around. Or maybe he's doing it. For men, it's even worse. What kind of man gets abused? So they keep quiet. So the abuse is not one way. It's not only to the wives. It's not only to a young girl who is in a relationship. There are some men also who are abused, who go through physical abuse or emotional abuse. I'm not an expert in this thing, but I work with a lot of people who have gone through this, and the pattern is the same.
Yeah. So it's been mentioned there's toxic masculinity and there's also gender roles that come into play. But our communities, the values and things that they value and the norms and what is expected of a woman to speak about and not to share, it all comes to affect those in a relationship, especially the one who's being abused. We have churches, we have aunties, we have, our grandmothers, like you're saying, they would say, so you can't leave your husband because he has slapped you, just one slap. And what does that mean then? Which means this woman is realizing that she's got nowhere to go. Her own family is pushing her back.
Yeah. You know, Monica, if I could just add to what Sipwe had said, that she's not an expert. And I just want to clarify that I'm not an expert either. However, I've experienced this type of relationship. And, you go to the church and the first thing the church is going to say is keep you together. Whether, regardless of the state, that's the first thing. So I find that you are surrounded, most people that are in these type of relationship, they just don't have the resources because number one, there's so much shame around it, right? But here is the other side of it. When your car is not running properly, right? Because you have to take it for a tune-up. You have to maintain that car. Well, it's the same thing with the human spirit and mind. And if we understand what a healing behavior is like, we think that we're hiding and nobody knows. But really, your behavior tells your situation. If you second guess yourself, you're always worried, you're scared, you have no self-confidence, those are signs that you are in a toxic relationship. Yet, we worry about coming out because how is it going to look? But yet, we are displaying the behavior of a broken relationship. So do you see the double-edged sword and why it is so hard for people to come out of these relationships, especially if they're big in the community? Some relationships, the partner might come off as being flamboyant. He's well-liked, but behind closed doors, there's a different scenario happening. So I can certainly understand, because I was there, I was stuck. And what that relationship does to you, you already have your doubts and everything else that's happening. And it just makes you feel that you cannot make a decision. You cannot move forward. You're just lost. And this is why I empathize with anyone that is watching this and that is feeling this. You have my heartfelt compassion.
So the one thing that keeps people in this yoke is the till death do us part statement, which it really doesn't mean much, because it has to be, we see how it goes. Because if somebody's going to be beating you, this till death do us part will be him putting you into the coffin. And I don't think it pays anybody. There's also the issue where women say, I'm staying because of my kids. If you're not there, there is no, they say one-way ticket. You're just going, you're just going to go. If you die, you die. There is no, not even your shadow will be able to look after your kids. And so people need to think what they're saying when they're saying, oh, it's tough, but I'm just staying for my kids, because that is not going to keep you alive. But can we list, maybe some people may not know, they probably know that this is bad, but may not know how bad it is, because they've been giving excuses for the men and trying to hide, or even the woman, just so they could keep face. Can we talk about the characteristics, especially say for a narcissist, for example, because those are the ones who seem to be the most dangerous ones, because they have got different sides to them that they show, and the victim, whether it's a man or a woman, is worried that everybody's going to think they're lying, because their perpetrator is very good at hiding who they are when he or she is around people. Auntie Spiwe.
I want to touch on two things here that you said earlier on about this Mrs. thing, because I'm married and I should stay married because I said until death do us part. Look, we have to get to the bottom line of this, because it's all very good to be married. Don't get me wrong. I was married for 23 years myself, you know, and I know I've been there. I was married, and okay, I'm widowed now. My husband passed away, but what I'm trying to say, I'm not bashing getting married. It's all very good, but you are still you, with or without a marriage. And when it's not working, when it's feeling not okay, it's okay to step out. If you give it 2 years outside an abusive marriage, you wonder how you ever put up, 3, 4, 5 years, all your life in that relationship. There's a life after him. There was a life before him. There will be a life after him. So Mrs. Thing, to me, it means nothing. It's just a title. It means nothing. Maybe it means something to you, but it means nothing. It doesn't add any value to you as a human being, as a woman, for instance. Okay. The second thing you were saying, what are those characteristics of a narcissist? They hurt your feeling and they send you on a guilt trip. They abuse you emotionally, and then they will make you feel like, yes, you deserve to go on a guilt trip. Maybe I did this to him. That's why I am being treated this way. That's one thing. And second thing, they want to isolate you because they want to control you. Because if you are all over the place and you are coming there with all these things that, you know what, I think I'll be all right on my cell, on my, just watch this. That doesn't work well with him, because believe it or not, they are afraid of themselves even. And anybody who challenges them in any way at any level scares the hell out of them. So they want to control you, take you away from people or anything or anybody who might give you that sense that you are okay, and you can sail your own boat, you can row your own boat, you'll be okay. They remove you from that. So those two specific ones. And if you're not careful, they will send you on that trip and you go. And you continue going because you think there's something not okay with you.
Wow. Yeah, if I could just add to what you ladies have said, I have a little fun fact. The concept of happily ever after started through the Romans, because the Romans, the one thing that they did, well, I'm sure they did many things well, was they educated their citizens to read and write. And because they were able to read and write and life was so hard for them, they wrote stories about love and romance and happily ever after. So that is where the concept came from. So we are now basing our life on a concept that was written how many years ago? And Monica, I would just love to top up what you and Sipwe had said about the characteristics of a narcissist, and what they do. It's called gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
Your feelings are never validated. They make you feel like you're going crazy. You're losing your mind. Nobody likes you. You're always walking around on eggshells. A narcissist is a master manipulator. And throughout that relationship, we understand how behavior is formed. And you do everything that you can to try and please the narcissist. But guess what? That's not a possibility. You cannot please a narcissist. And the last thing that I'd like to add before I turn it back over to you, as Sipwe, you hit it on the head. They are the biggest coward there is. They project their bullyism, their hurt, their anger, everything on you. And when they can belittle you, that's when they get the rush. Very, very dangerous. And you know, I would say that most people have a relative in their family that's a narcissist, and they don't understand. The men that have 3 or 4 baby mamas, if that terminology is still used, they have different women and they're juggling, and you know that they may not be full narcissists, but those are behaviors of a narcissist, and we see it all around us. We hear the words, but we don't associate the behavior with the words.
Just feel, would you like to chime in?
Yes, because you see, as Maxine said, the thing is, at times, if you are looking for help from friends and people who are close to you who are not professionals in that, you know, they'll find it very difficult to believe. They will find it very difficult to believe because that person is a snake charmer. When he's out there, everybody likes him. You know, all the other women like him, and people are like, did you do that? He does this for you. He's really such a gentleman. And they don't believe it. Because that's, again, part of being a narcissist, because they are not quite obvious. It's not all of them who are, they stand there and you go, oh my God. No. And the women who suffer most are those who have, particularly the husbands, who are almost the perfect gentleman for the community, for the society. And what they do when they are home, it's unbelievable, horrific things they do to their wives. They strip you of your dignity and they make you think you're nothing. You know, if you think people like you, which is, again, a sign of what they feel about themselves. They want to hold on to other things because they are afraid. They are afraid. And such violence, that comes from there, it starts slowly. It starts emotional. It starts financial. And then eventually, they erupt, and then something horrific happens, and people can't believe, how could he have done that? Again, look, there's another side to this. This is a public health problem. And at times, people do that. We keep referring to men, but maybe because we're all women and we know a lot of women who are going through that, who have gone through that. The issue is, it's a public health issue, both to the victim and the perpetrator. It could be some mental health thing happening there with a person, and you don't even realize that this person, if you're not a doctor or somebody who is trained in the medical field, you might not realize this. It's escalating. This guy is getting worse. You know, it throws things around. Who does that? And you know, it could be something happening in their life, and if they don't seek help, then it could end up being a disaster, and somebody could be killed, somebody could be damaged. And for a wife as well, for the woman or the victim, it starts slowly, and you lose your mind. You go totally berserk. You get high blood pressure. You lose your mind, going totally crazy. That's a public health issue. It's more than just the physical issue of someone being abused. So domestic violence, it's really a problem. It's really a problem. And this intimate partner violence, we see it all the time. And what makes it sad is sometimes it happens to girls people who are not even married. You're living with a partner and you have no business being there. And you keep telling yourself, this is not okay, I don't like it. But the fear of stepping out and starting on your own, it's real to a lot of young women. It's real. It's like it's a loss. I've lost it.
Yeah.
I've lost a man. I'm on my own. I don't have a partner. I don't have a boyfriend, and I'm not married. To them, it becomes real.
That is true. But you're talking about the ones who are staying with their partner, but I bet some of that even started when they're still dating and they're not living together, and this boy would have been slapping them. I remember at school, in secondary school, we used to have this girl, everybody knew that the boyfriend used to slap her. And they got married. 7 years later, they got married. And so how can you then tell someone who has known this boy from when he was a boy, a teenager, to now this is the husband and this is the only man she knows, to say that, you need to leave him because he has done his work on her from when she is very young. And now even when she's married, how can she then turn around and say, this guy that I grew up with, went to school with, we got married, now we have got 2 kids and he's still beating me up. She's not going to leave.
Yeah, Monica, because
you know how.
Yeah, that's because there's codependency issues happening. You now identify as the victim and take on the behavior. So this is what your mind has come to expect. And, here's the other thing too. Sipwa, you had talked about, what was it, a snake charmer? That's what they did. A narcissist, when you meet a narcissist in the beginning, it's like a honeymoon phase. They can't do enough for you. I mean, the flowers, the nice clothes, the jewelry, right? That is the trap, the golden handcuffs. And when you start seeing the real behavior, you think, okay, no, something's wrong. It's my fault. He used to do this. He gave me this. And you long for the way things were. And you hold on to that. And before you know it, it's 2 years and you've lost that beautiful gem that you were, your confidence. Slowly by slowly, they just suck it out of you. It's a game they've played before. And if you don't know the game or the rules of the game, guess what?
You're done.
Yeah, you're going to lose that
dancing,
game. And I'd like to just touch on one more point before I hand it back over to you, beautiful ladies. It is so important for us to show our daughters, our son, our brothers, what a healthy relationship looks like. Because when we can show people what a healthy relationship looks and feels like, they can then identify, hey, something's wrong here. This is not normal behavior. And that's when healing comes in. And maybe we can touch on that later on, Monica.
Yes, I like what you said about showing your kids what a good relationship looks like. But then the fact that they're staying in these relationships, it means that this is the only example that their children know. And the cycle continues from grandmother to mother to daughter. And it just continues like that. And so this could be the reason why some of the women are staying, because they have seen their grandmother go through that. They have seen their mother go through that. And now it is them. And they're just thinking, well, because now they're looking at their grandfather. He's too old to hit anybody. And things seems to be okay now. And so when they look at them, they're now happy. The grandma, even though she's limping from the damage done over the years, she's forgiven him. She still cooks him sadza. And then he himself, he can't, he's now depending on her for everything. He has got no choice but to be nice. Now she's saying, oh my goodness, maybe if our relationship might end up being like grandma and granddad. This is where the problem is. It's 50 years of being beaten up, of going through abuse. You're hoping that it may be when he is 70, things will be okay. I stayed for my children. Go on, Sipiwe.
Monica, today I read one of the articles from back home. A 90-year-old man was killed by his 87-year-old wife. She picked a brick and hit him. You know, I saw that and I was like, my God, because he refused to help him to carry some peas from the field to bring to the house. But you know what? We have a lot of damaged people out there. He could be an old man. When he sits there, he'll be barking and barking and barking. But grandma just ignores it. We have a lot of broken people out there because of this behavior, which unfortunately, it translates into the same behavior in children. And if we don't sit down to look at it and say, you know what, I'm not enjoying this. My children don't need to grow up seeing this kind of stuff. We are just perpetuating it. The cycle which continues to go on and on. That story shocked me, and I was like, is this a joke? 90-year-old man. But you see, even when they're old like that, they still bark like they always did over the years. But you see, grandma would just like kind of ignores that. Only takes just one little spark. It only takes one little, and that's it. The man died. A 90-year-old man died. Yeah.
So grandma was bottling it up all these years, and she got to a point where she snapped.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much because they're both old. One little rock and that's it, is gone.
Yeah. I'm sure that this doesn't surprise you, but in my practice, I've seen the increase of DV, domestic violence, and just everything has heightened with COVID. And it's people that have not mended the things that were bothering them before COVID. It has just now snowballed into such a bigger effect that there's no control. They don't understand that that's what's happening. So the body just embeds that trauma, and it has to come out somehow. There's only so much alcohol that you can drink. It's got to come out. And that's why healing your trauma, as Sipwe has says, because if you don't, it recycles into our children. It goes on from generation to generation. And, you know, in my generation, not too far removed from, you know, coming from poverty where, you know, God bless my mother. She didn't go to high school, but she raised 3 kids. But I never grew up with a father figure. So do you think that's going to help me if I didn't grow up in a home where there was a mom and dad to show me what a balanced relationship looked like? It's going to take my trial and error, you know, to get it right. So this is why it's important. If we set the foundation, oh man, we give our children the tools that they need to succeed, right? So it is just so important that we start our healing now. We start reading, we start researching, we go to school for subjects and topics, and that's important. But this gift of life, this human body, this spirit, this is the greatest gift we'll ever have. We are infinite potential creatures. And once we start tapping into who we are, spending that time healing and loving ourselves, oh man, what we can do and how we can love and give the best of ourselves as a mother, a wife, a daughter. Oh, our healing, once you heal yourself, it just spreads, the ripple effects. People want to know what you're doing, Monica. You know, you know, healing is not a word that's talked about often because it's not deemed as sexy. I remember in the past when, you know, when a woman would reinvent herself, we would associate it to, oh, she must have a new man. No, she doesn't. She has spent time with herself, her self-care, fixing what she has not done correctly, owning the choices that she's made in her life, right? And now that she's owning it, she's now working on bettering it, right? So, you know, girl, this is a subject that I'm passionate about.
That's a good, very good point. That, you know, now see who's getting the credit. A man who's not there, just because the woman has decided that, you know what, I'm better than this, and they've decided to look after themselves. But I want to add where you talked about healing. You cannot heal when you are in that environment that made you sick. So you need to have the courage to remove yourself from that environment so that you can heal. But also, whilst you are still in that relationship, if removing yourself completely is difficult, because you need to give your brain, your mind, your whole being an opportunity to recover, and also an opportunity to experience something different. Go visit a relative, go visit family, go somewhere for 2 weeks away from this environment so that you can breathe and then work out what you need to do. Because whilst you're in that, sometimes this person keeps you so busy, your mind doesn't work. It's so clogged up, it will not work. So you just need time away whilst you're now starting to build your courage, and then you know how to get yourself out of the situation.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, I think it's important to point out that there's these circumstances. It's can be quite confusing, right? It's on a spectrum of a little bit, so much, and way out of hand, right? When you start, what I can tell people who are in relationships which just don't feel right, ask yourself, how bad is this thing? And how often is this thing happening? And can I do something before it gets worse? Because sometimes when you leave it, when it gets worse, you cannot think of moving and going to visit my friend. Your husband will say, how can you go and visit Spirit? She's outlandish. She's crazy. You know, that woman, you know, I don't even know how she was married. I'm sorry for the husband who was married to this woman. She's wild, you know. And so you have to know on a spectrum of okay, not okay, getting out of hand. You have to know when to do something. There are resources out there. And I know you pointed out a little bit about church support and aunties. And, you know, we are here and our support system has changed drastically from way back home. The people you grew up with, your aunties and close people or neighbors you could talk to about things like this, right? It's a completely different arrangement altogether. But there are resources out there where you can reach out and call and cry. They might not know who you are, but they'll tell you, assess you better than me and Maxine and Monica, saying, you know what, I think what you need to do is this, because this doesn't look all right. And maybe your health is deteriorating and you're staying in-house and you can't even get out. They can tell that this is depression setting here because of emotional or physical abuse. I can't tell you that because I don't know. I'm not trained that way, right? So it's important to know who you should reach out to for support and at what point. Right. And if church is your biggest support, all power. But let me tell you the problem, which I have seen and experienced with most of our churches. They mean well. They mean well, but they again want to keep it indoors. They don't want to be seen to have a member of their church going through divorce or choosing to leave. They don't want. They want to keep things together. So they do what they can, what they know, and what they can do with the situation like that. And again, there are some, it's quite terrible. They just dismiss it. They talk like you're talking to your grandmother, who said that's what marriage is all about. The woman has to be strong. No, I don't want to be strong. I don't want to be strong. I just want to be me. This is getting out of hand. I would tell you, stay there. You've got children. What do you expect? So what are you going to do when you leave? Because again, they have in their minds, it means if you're leaving your husband, leaving your family, it means you just want to go find another man and sleep around with. It always turns out to be looking for another man and sleeping with that man. And then the bottom line, that's not the point. You have to support each other. And I think some of the our church members, they don't have the capacity to assist people who are going through mental anguish because of bad marriages. They don't. Telling them to read the Bible and to pray, sometimes it doesn't fly. You are talking about someone whose life really is really on a very precarious position here, which needs help. So let us be very careful. There are resources around of domestic violence. They are, you know, I don't know if it's 911 or 311, but you know, there are hotlines for situations like this. You know, hotlines for people who are going through domestic violence. Please seek the help. It's better than us being called somebody is gone. This is what happens. You know, a person will go to prison for so many years, but you dead. Those children will grow up without a mother. So it's very, very important to know the resources available and the help that you can get instead of staying in a relationship because people say it's going to be okay, or you just want to be called Mrs. That doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't fly.
That's true. And they grow up without the dad as well because he'll be in prison. And I think people really think about the stigma and the effect that this will have on their children, knowing that my mother got killed by my dad and now my dad went to prison.
That's just layers of trauma.
Yeah, that's another layer there which, you know, really affected the child for the rest of their lives. And so it doesn't really make sense. And there's also something that's been raised here, that the issue here is that if one shares with friends, they use the information to victimize the victim. So we'll go back to what Auntie Spiwe said, that there are resources out there. So you don't have to call your friends if you don't trust them. You don't have to call family members if you don't trust them. You can find a counselor. You can call shelter to find out what you can do, where you can go. You can call the crisis center, where you don't need to mention your name or wherever, but just to talk to someone. And they will tell you about more resources that are at your disposal, where you can go.
Yeah, Monica, I would just love to touch on one thing that you had suggested about if they could leave and maybe just get a fresh perspective for a couple of weeks. I think that's a good idea. However, when you're with a narcissist who is all about control, they want to keep you in an environment that keeps you just dark and clouded and second guessing yourself. And before I get to the next point, I'd just like to touch on what Stipley had said about, the church doesn't have the capacity to deal with stuff like this. And here's the thing about narcissists. They tend to be in positions that are of leadership. So there are narcissists in every aspect of society. And the last point that I'd like to touch on is, if anybody is watching this and you can identify, or maybe you're going through this, start with a plan. Maybe you're not ready to leave at this moment. Start formulating your plan. Have your paperwork, your documents ready. Start researching. There's a gentleman, HG Tutor. A girlfriend had turned me on to HG Tutor. If you're not sure that your partner is a narcissist or displaying behavior, look it up. Educate yourself. Take back some of your power. Start with a plan. You may not be ready to leave at this moment, but start planning. Over to you.
That's a good point. There's two things you need to do. Start planning, but also not just planning without really putting certain things in place. You need to make sure that you have a wallet hidden somewhere which has got some money in it, or a card with money in it. Could be just one of those that you upload the money on, which he doesn't know, or which she doesn't know about. But you find somewhere where you put this money in, jeans or whatever, but make sure that you have got an overnight bag that is ready somewhere, whether it is at your friend's place or somewhere. But you need to always make sure that you have certain important, your passport, your things that are important, things that matter, so that when you need to go, you just go as if you're going to work and that's it, you're not coming back. And then you just go to school, pick up your kids and go and drive until the fuel runs out. But you need to keep yourself safe. And just Piwa, you get something to add.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that, you see, I'm talking in terms of where I come from, and the general saying, all these things that people say that, you know, when a woman is physically abused, there's violence in the house, it's because of what she did. It's because she's seeing other men. It's because she doesn't obey her husband. And if you're not careful, like I said, you know, people send you on a guilt trip and you go, you think, yeah, maybe that's what they say. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe I'm exhibiting certain things that make me look like I'm seeing another man, or, you know, but I'm not doing that. You know what? It's your life. You know, take back on it. This is your life, and whatever you're going to do, if you're going to pray, honey, pray that you get out. That's fine. Not to pray that you stay there. No, that, you know, if I am going to, let me not be afraid. There are resources out there. I will be just fine. It's terrible what is happening out there. The stories that we are reading of people who have been beaten up, been killed and dead and gone, and that's it. And we hear about this all the time. And I personally find it so sad when I hear another woman saying, maybe she was a bit too much. What does that even mean? What does it even mean? Maybe she was a bit too much. Meaning what? This is another person who has been killed. This is another person who is violently, you know, abused by a husband or a boyfriend, or, you know, in a relationship. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. We have to stand for each other and support each other. And if another woman is going through domestic violence, be there as a sister. Don't judge. It could be anybody else. Don't judge. Help her build her emotions, her own confidence that she, you know, I'll walk out even if I go without anything, I'll be okay. That's what we need, instead of making it worse by derailing her efforts.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, you know, you brought up a great point there with a response like that. And usually when you get a response like that, it's somebody who has not healed their own self. Because a whole person is a person of infinite love and compassion. Here's the trick. You have to give yourself that love and compassion and heal before you can radiate that out. The sad thing, though, is most people are going through some kind of trauma, and they call it pretty names, stuff, issues. And most people right now are so not together. I don't want to use the word broken, because we're all wholesome people. We're just stuck. We're trapped. But so many people have issues that are unresolved, and when those issues just pile up on top of each other, and who we are, this love and this compassion that we naturally should be showing to our brothers and our sisters, it's trapped. When you hear stuff like that, your heart should say, oh my gosh, she could have been my best friend. She could have been my sister. She could have been. This is how a human heart, a healed human heart, reacts to something like that. Because we know we're all deserving of love and kindness and compassion. So when you hear someone react like that, that's a red flag, because that is not a wholehearted response.
It probably means that the whole situation triggered them. And
you see, it's when people start saying, oh, you know, how is your relationship? How is it going? It's complicated. It ain't complicated, honey. You're complicating it. Get out. Gosh.
Yes, you're complicating it, and if you can get out.
Yeah.
So I think we also came across like the statement that you mentioned, Auntie Spiwe, that somebody would say maybe you have done something. So can you imagine then if the perpetrator is either the husband or the wife, and then family members are asking you, what have you done to deserve that? Basically means that you have got nowhere to go. Then that means that you really haven't got anyone to tell what you are going through. You're on your own. And that is why it's important to seek help from these other services as well, the services that are out there. Can you chime in, Auntie Spiwe?
Yes, its support system is very, very important. And again, as you said, when it's your friends, I think it's Maxine who says sometimes, oh, no, it's a comment which came in that sometimes the people you tell are not really there to support you because they go behind you, because it's not every woman who is strong enough to say, you know what, whatever comes, it will find me here, I'll, bring it on. It's not every woman like that. A lot of them, they want to side with the in the sense that they are afraid if they stand there and say, Mr. So-and-so, this to wife, this is wrong, and that woman needs help, and we're going to support you. They are afraid that they are seen to be supporting the wife and not supporting the man, they could be in the same problem with their husbands. So a lot of women don't support each other because they want to be seen to be not to be strong and staunch in their resolve in the when it comes to an issue. And a lot of times they just kind of like are lukewarm about it, and do not take a step. That's Homa, and it's so difficult. And they don't understand that this is wrong. It's not acceptable. They don't. And when we find situations like that, then it's difficult to help a person. But as women, I am talking to you as a woman, and as a feminist, and as a support of other women. We have to do everything we can to support each other. If whoever we're supporting is not as strong as we are, we just have to form a chain around her and make her stronger. That is what makes strong Black women, not to go behind the other person and, derailing her. It doesn't quite work that way. And then you say, we're strong women. Strong women. That's not it. Situations like this that shows what a strong woman is. You bond together, you hold on together, and you help lift another person up. It's important. We are losing too many women to domestic violence. Too many. We hear about this all the time. Where are the women? Where are we? We've got a job there. We've got a job to do. So let's be aware of it, and let's be supportive of each other. Let's come up with ways to support those who are not as strong as we are, who are going through domestic violence.
Yeah.
It's important.
I'd just like to touch quickly on something that Auntie Sipwe said about strength. And I'm going to take it from another perspective. The fact that you are in this relationship and you're keeping it together, whether you've been in it for 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years, you are strong. I'm talking to you. You are strong. You don't realize how strong you are because you have this on top of you. Formulate your plan. Get that support system. It's going to take a little while for your mind and your body to get out of that toxic relationship and to adjust. But when you get out of it and you build yourself, you are going to surprise yourself of the strength that is in you, that is asking to come to light.
That is true. It's like I'm doing a loop because I'm just thinking about something that Auntie Spiwe was talking about. She mentioned that women need to come together and to create a hedge around another sister and really protect them. And I think at this point, we also need to rebuke those women who encourage, because there are some women who encourage, whether it is the boyfriend who is got another woman, who encourage that boyfriend to, to violate or abuse or even kill or whatever, but to do bad stuff to another woman. If you and this guy or the men have decided to get together just take each other and go and leave this other woman alone and leave her alive, instead of really gaining up with the man to do harm to another woman.
You know what, Monica, here's the thing that what people don't understand. If you start your relationship off with a married man and you eventually get that man, what makes you think he's not going to do that to you? So we have these behavior, whether, like you just said, a woman who, who gets together with this man and they plot evil things for this other person. Well, that is showing you that this man has evil intent. And what makes you think he will not display this type of behavior with you? So, in Jamaica, we always say when you're digging a pit, don't dig one, dig two. Because the behaviors that we put out there always comes back. That boomerang effect always comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to consider as well.
That's a good point. So now I'm giving each of you 1.5 minutes to wrap up. What are your last thoughts, Auntie Spiwe? Your final thoughts?
I just want to reinforce the importance of strong women around weaker sisters to help them stand, because we all at one time are not as strong as our friends around us. So we need that help and we need to support each other. And you know what? Mrs. is just a title. Really don't stay in there for that title. You'll be just perfectly okay, without it. And as what Martin was talking about, and all wanting to get married to that very hot man and whatever, don't deal with the recycled man. You can't handle it, honey. You can't. And after a few days, you just want him gone. No one wants a recycled man. Find your own, and if he's not good, drop him like he's hot. It's not worth it. Don't stay there until you get to, we come and pick you up in a body bag. It's not worth it. Nobody is worth it. Nobody's worth that much. That's what I'm saying. So really, let's support each other. And if it doesn't feel right, it's not because you're stupid. No, it's a cycle. That's what happens. But know that there are people out there. There are resources out there to help you. It might not be me or Monica or Maxine, but there are resources out there where you can reach out, cry, and say, "Look, I can't handle it. I'm losing my head." And it might not be physical violence, but emotional violence. That's terrible. You end up with high blood pressure, and you'll be dead. It's not worth. Nobody's worth it. Nobody's worth that much. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think this is very important. We need to keep talking about it, because if we don't, people feel isolated. It's not something that you just come up and say, "You know what, I'm going through difficult times with my boyfriend or my husband or the father of my children." People don't, they're strong. Like Maxine said, that's strength for a while. But you know what? Come up with a plan. If you have to pray about it, pray that you get out. Pray that you get out. Please, Lord, I'm not afraid. Lead me to where I should be there. But you're not supposed to be there. There are so many people, those women you are seeing, some of them in your church, who are suffering gravely, but they cannot say it.
Wow. Well, my closing comment would be to anyone that is in a relationship that is toxic at the moment. You are worth the effort. I understand that when you're in a toxic relationship, your self-esteem, you don't feel like you're worth the effort. I'm here to remind you that you're beautiful on the inside. There's a lot of beauty. There's a future for you. And if you have children, there's a future for your children as well. Just make that choice, make that decision, have a plan. You may not be able to execute it today or tomorrow, but start. That will give you hope. You are worthy. Monica?
Thank you. Yes, people, you need to realize your self-worth. You need to start developing self-love. And I'll tell you how I made my decision to leave someone who was totally toxic. I went to the doctors. I've never had a problem with high blood pressure. But when the doctor told me that your blood pressure is high, and next time when you come back, I will put you on medication, I said, never. It was a 7-minute walk from the surgery to the place where we used to live. By the time I got there, 7 minutes, I was done. I wiped him out. And I never thought about him again. I went back to the surgery about a week ago. My blood pressure was fine. Never take medication because of another human being who's got his own brains, who's got his own journey, who's got his own lifespan. Don't let another person determine how long you should live on earth. And I call that 7 minutes. You can really wipe out someone from you. You can disconnect. You just need to make a decision. I disconnected in 7 minutes. And so you need to do that. You disconnected because I think what is keeping you in these toxic relationships is the connections where you are using lame excuses and all these other things that they did for you in the past. Come on, those things they did for you, they are in the past. What is happening for you today is different. And what might be happening for you tomorrow might be worse. Disconnect. Learn to disconnect and build your strength. Thank you so much for taking time to spend with us on South TV with Maxine and Auntie Spiwe. And here, Monica Kunsakakuta. Have a great night.